as you've gotten more into your career, what you're going to realize, whether you want to admit it or not, is there is a certain type of case that you nail for whatever reason. There is a certain set of things that align that you kill it on. That's what you build it around. Because it's not that you can't help the others, but you know with almost without a shadow of a doubt that you can nail this thing. That's what you go after.
This is Courtroom Stories and Tactics by RVA Trial Lawyers, hosted by Sharif Gray and Niall Abuzaki.
All right, before we get into the podcast episode, I want to take a minute or two and introduce you to a friend and colleague, Jenny Shadini. Jenny is a former prosecutor from Baltimore City, and now she works as a settlement consultant. We work with her often on helping our clients really maximize their results. Jenny, it's really great working with you and having you as a supporter of the podcast.
Thank you, Sharif. Hi, everyone. My name is Jenny Shadini, and I work as a settlement consultant, which means I work with attorneys and their clients in various settlement planning needs, such as structured settlements, whether or not to utilize a trust, how to protect government benefits, and overall providing financial security to your clients.
And Jenny, how could people get a hold of you?
The best way to reach me would be my cell, which is 301-332-1031. Again, that's 301-332-1031.
All right, we're back. And today I am super excited to have Kelly Gordon with Dapper Codes join us. Kelly and I have worked together for a few years now, and Kelly does a lot of digital marketing work, has certainly helped our podcast, has certainly helped our firm at times create that digital presence in a meaningful way that allows for prospective clients to not just see the work that we do, but see kind of who we are. And so, Kelly, I'm super excited to have you. One thing I want to share before we kind of dive into it is I remember when you and I first started working, I was like, wait, how does she do this all by herself? Like, I looked at your website and I was like, is it just Kelly? Because I mean, the work was happening. There's a lot of stuff going on. And it wasn't for months until I realized, I think you slipped somewhere and you're like, oh yeah, I've got a team of like 16 people, right? And I'm sure it's probably more now, right? So anyways, for the longest time, I thought you were just like doing this on your own, which to me was insane. But before we get into it, why don't you take 30 seconds, a minute or so, introduce yourself.
Absolutely. So Kelly Gordon, CEO, founder of Dapper Codes. Been doing this for almost 20 years now, which is a little crazy, but here we are. And originally got into it. So this was before ads was a thing. This was before Facebook, all of that. Web design, development, SEO. We got into all of the ads for a long period of time. And now we are doing the one thing that we've done the longest and we're the best at, which is SEO. How to get businesses found online and get those customers connected.
Let me take you back to the decision point that you had when it came to deciding to pursue this type of work. Can you share that story with us?
Yeah, that takes me back. I remember I was 16. I was working on a horse farm. I was competing very heavily my entire life with horses. And for anybody that knows what that life is like, it's incredibly physically demanding. I was incredibly lucky, all of that, but it was very physically demanding. And my dad said to me, he was a carpenter. He did construction, and then he moved when he couldn't do that kind of stuff anymore to antique restoration and then custom cabinet creation. And he said to me, I want for you to work with your mind and not your body. And I'm not gonna lie, it took me about a decade to really come around to that. But it still sticks with me today of what that truly means and the changes in your life, what that could be. And for me, that changed the trajectory of where I went to school and what I did after, and kind of how I got here. His business ultimately failed when we moved. I was young at the time, and I know that at this point in my life, I could have helped that not happen. And like for me, that's such a big driving factor of like helping small businesses get found. If you're not found, you don't have customers. If you don't have customers, you can't support your families. And that can mean all sorts of things. So for me, that one phrase, I was 16, many years ago. I'm going to do the math in my head, but it still sticks with me today of like why I choose to do the thing that I do.
And what is it about small businesses that gets you going?
The cool thing to me is the impact, right? So, when you work with a business, we have worked with businesses of all sizes, but I love small business because if I help one business owner, I've helped their whole family. right? I've helped put their kids through college. I've helped, even the life that they have learned to live and grow up, and then their children, the spider web of all the people that they employ, all of the contractors, that everybody. Like, you can truly help so many people through one entity, through helping a small business. And to me, that it doesn't get better than that.
A couple things on that. So what I look at when I look at like digital marketing and SEO and all that, in some respects, and I know I don't know how true what I'm about to say is, but it's a great equalizer, right? Mm-hmm. Like, the biggest law firm in the world gets a line on Google. Well, guess what? They only get one line, right? The next line can be a small mom and pop type right. law firm. So in some ways, granted, there's a lot more that of course goes into that, but in some ways, helping people, or especially people in our profession, trial lawyers, get seen on that digital from that digital front is massive. One other thing I want to mention before I forget is I think you do more than just help the family and the employees, right? You're also helping the prospective clients. And at least with the work that our firm does, I mean, we're talking about people who've been hurt at no fault of their own. They've never been through anything like this in their life before. And now they are suddenly faced with an insurance company that's not treating them fairly, or at least that's how they perceive it, which, and I mean, to be candid, I mean, it's damn near always true. It's very,
right. It's probably true.
We wouldn't have a job. I wouldn't have a job if insurance companies paid full and fair value right off the bat, right? So, but you're helping connect them with hopefully qualified counsel who cares. Correct. And there's a lot to that, right? Because, I mean, personal injury, I mean, you can't get in your car and drive around any sort of major highway or city and not get bombarded with stuff on the radio, billboards, all that. It's everywhere. And how does somebody distinguish or differentiate between the law firm with the lawyers who care and are going to make a difference for them, and then the settlement mill that's going to take their file and just churn it, right? And so you're helping connect those people with hopefully competent counsel that cares. And I think that's massive. It's incredibly, incredibly important.
Yeah, like, we want to work with and have made choices to either, if we did not realize it at the time, or to let clients go, or not get involved if they are not the best. You know what I mean? Like, I want to work with clients, and especially lawyers as a whole situation, that literally have the individual that they represent's best interest at heart. That can be, it's such a predatory field in general that it is, of course, up to the law firm and the people that are a part of it to, put out in the world who they are and why they serve, right? Which is a whole thing we'll kind of get into, of the difference of kind of the bridge of marketing and messaging into sales, right? Like, how do we make that work in any sort of way and actually communicate who we are, right? But, wanting to work with people who have a really strong moral compass, like yourself, who are like, we are doing this for a specific reason, and it is the people that we can connect with you, right? Like, that's essentially the goal.
A few years ago, there was a good friend of mine, well, he still is a good friend of mine. I remember him talking to me about marketing, which is a word I don't really care for, but it's a word that we use and it makes sense. And what I typically prefer instead of marketing is making yourself an option for people. And I remember my friend saying, Sharif, like, if you aren't willing to put yourself out there, to market, to make yourself an option, and you believe you provide a good service, and you're not out there, right? People can't find you. Well, then shame on you. He said, because that means that there are people who need you, but they're stuck calling the 1-888, who knows, win-win, whatever the slogan is, right? Like, and so I've embraced that. And I think at least I've tried to really kind of follow your advice and present myself. I don't say, look at me, I'm the best, right? Like, that's, at least that, I hope that's not my message. It's, this is who I am. I think we do a good job. We care about what we do. We do get good results. We're honest. We're compassionate and hardworking. And we're not saying you need to hire us, but we just want you to know that if you need us, we're here and we're happy to chat with you. We're an option. And I understand that you guys, that's what we're going to talk about in large part today, is it's not just rankings for SEO, right? There's, just because you show up number one doesn't mean that the client, the prospective client, is going to, one, even click, right? And two, actually be interested enough to actually call, send a message, send an email for a consultation to even occur. So let's get into that.
There's a very big difference in visibility and actual conversions of market share, right? And so that is the difference and the bridge of what marketing or visibility can do. There's a lot of misconception of what marketing's job is, which we can get into. Marketing's job is visibility. You said it right. Like, I am an option. I am here. How many platforms has that happened on, right? And then the messaging, who I am, why I do what I do, and the benefits of that I've helped people with, especially in your case, right? Those case studies, the every single day I'm here to help, especially in your industry, and then saying, how do we actually close that? All three of those are very different things. Most people think that's just quote marketing, but it is three very distinct pieces.
For the personal injury lawyer, and I've heard lawyers say what I'm about to say, who they know that the digital marketing is important, right? And I think it's incredibly important, especially nowadays. We're all on our phones, we're on our computers, right? Your website is your front door, right? Like that, it has to be there. And if you don't have that, well, then you're missing out. But there are a lot of lawyers, and I certainly have peers who say, you know what, I'm not even going to dip my toe in that water because it's just too expensive. What do you tell those people?
That's a little two-pronged when you talk to somebody like me in the industry, right? So I think you and I have talked a little bit about this, I'm going to get really in a lot of trouble with other agencies about this, but there are digital agencies that go into certain industries because you can charge them more, right? Lawyers and personal injury lawyers are one of them. They are seen as they make a lot of money for this, which means if I can get them more visibility, the upside is huge, they should pay me more. I don't believe that is true. I believe that the work is the work, and the amount and what goes into the work is what should be paid, right? That is very, very different. Like I said, it can get me in trouble in the marketing space, but that is what's true. And so if it is costing an arm and a leg, talk to other people, literally. Like, it shouldn't, in my opinion. There are certain things that have to happen, right? In my world, we're talking about web design development and design and SEO, which are very tangible things. There's a certain amount of work that goes into it for the things that come out of it. So that's really we can get into that more if you want, but that's my recommendation, is start shopping around.
So that's kind of the same problem that even people have trying to find us, right? Or find a doctor, right? You don't know if they're any good, right? How do you figure that out? Like, how do you figure out, like, okay, what SEO company should I be looking for? Like, how do I make the decision and differentiate between all the different competing agencies? Because especially in the legal space, I mean, there are tons, and they're all wildly expensive.
Right, and there's tons of options. I actually recently found myself in the situation trying to find a bookkeeper, and it really made me, figure out, I don't have the background of a bookkeeper or accountant to understand when I look at something to say, hey, this is a problem, right? Like, you could probably look at, or anybody listening to this, a personal injury attorney or lawsuit or file and say, these are the missing pieces. Right. We can look at that. I can look at digital marketing and say, these are the missing pieces. But you're asking, what do we do if we don't have that knowledge? The best advice that I can give you is A, look around, okay? B, look at the case studies. Look at the age of the case studies. Look at the date ranges of the case studies. See if there is any sort of video of the owner that is talking about the results of those case studies. It can be very easy, especially in digital marketing. This happens a lot in agency world, of having a really strong 3 to 6 months, and then it falls off. Their attention's gone elsewhere. It's really hard to maintain, that kind of thing. We want people that have a very consistent track record over that period of time. We want a very large retention base of the agency. In agency world, is just me being honest, the churn is insane for most agencies because they are, quote, churning and burning, right? That you've got really, really exaggerated advertising on the front, which brings in large amounts of people. They have a whole sales process. They close a percentage of them. They close them on a retainer at first. We don't do any of that. We do projects at first because you can't go into a retainer until you know certain things, right? But that's like being able to poke holes in it. If the first thing that somebody wants to sell you is a very, very expensive retainer, go talk to other people.
No, that makes sense. And I mean, I'll be candid, I've dabbled in the SEO world for years now, and it's not easy. It's really not easy. I mean, you were introduced to me by a different provider, And I'm glad that happened, because otherwise, like, I was in the legal world, I have been, and I'm sure many other lawyers, especially in the personal injury space, are bombarded by these
Constant
yeah,
everywhere.
just it's bombard, and it's expensive. Like, you can't, I don't think you can get in with any of these other firms for less than 10 grand a month.
Yeah.
Which is just wild. And coming back to what the question that prompted this, like, it just doesn't, it's not feasible, especially
Right.
for the 2-3 lawyer shop, right? It just doesn't make sense.
Right.
But anyways, well, let's kind of, where do we want to dig into a little bit more? I mean, let's talk about the visibility piece. As a personal injury lawyer, how does one start to make traction in the visibility space in spite of the massive, huge budget, kind of 800-pound gorilla in the room personal injury firms in their market?
Absolutely. So if I woke up tomorrow as a personal injury lawyer, what would I do? I have in that realm zero understanding. Like, you can't Google me in there, and I'm a personal injury lawyer. What do I do? The first thing that I'm going to do doesn't actually cost money; it costs time. That's where you're going to start building your social profiles. You're looking at Facebook, you're looking at LinkedIn, and you're looking at Instagram. Okay, you can post the same thing across those to get started. Don't make it complicated. So creative repositioning. So this goes into a little bit that we talked about before. We do more than just SEO. So the idea is you can get a lot of people's attention, but if that attention doesn't resonate, then they're not going to buy, and then none of it makes sense. Okay. So there is an idea of branding and messaging being very specific. And the branding and messaging around you would be very different than say if I was a personal injury lawyer or somebody else, right? And it should be. It shouldn't just be, I'm the car accident attorney. It shouldn't just be on the motorcycle. Like, it has to be more in depth than that. Who are you? Why do you do what you do? And what is it that you do exactly, right? So that's that niche within a niche. I would head that direction with organic written content, very similarly to what you do on LinkedIn every day. Like, I see that, right? Follow, if anybody needs to follow anything for quote free, of course, time, follow what he's doing on LinkedIn. All right, like, that's a visibility piece on organic. You can do the same thing on Instagram. You can do the same thing on Facebook. All right, we can get into like logistics of finding people, adding people, and all that kind of stuff, but that's where I would start. As far as what am I going to do organic wise, absolutely your Google business profile, and I would start working on my SEO on the site. If I don't have that, right, so the way that this works is the website itself is like the anchor. Okay, that's where AI, GBP, all of that is getting its information of who and what to share, right? The website is the anchor. The information has to be there in a way that makes sense. You can Google these things, you can whatever, or you work with somebody, right? Who am I? What do I do? And then how do you get in touch with me? Those are the best, like, key pieces. Keep it simple at first. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to GBP. I'm literally going to take, say, what you've posted on LinkedIn. I'm going to put it on GBP every single day as well. Just going to put it
Can
up
you
there.
explain what GBP is?
Sorry, GBP is Google Business Profile. So that's the maps pack that everybody hears about, right? Like, so if I Google personal injury attorney near me on mobile, it's going to come up and I can click it, and then it goes on the maps desktop. I think it shows up just below PPC, right? So that's,
I mean, it's huge, right? I mean,
huge.
Well, actually, what's crazy? I told this to my wife the other day. I like don't really Google stuff anymore. Now it's all ChatGPT.
Right.
Like, I'm finding myself doing that. But before that, I mean, where do I want to go to eat? Well, restaurants near me, and what are my eyes going towards? Are going towards those first 3 results under the
Absolutely.
map,
Top 3
right?
map pack.
And I'm looking for the reviews and all that stuff, right?
Yep. And so the website is the anchor. The Google Business Profile and AI is visibility of the organic rankings. Okay, that's where AI is getting its information from, which is why we start there. This is a really good thing to talk about. There's no quote optimizing for AI. So, like, companies that are like, we are, SEO companies, and we now have this package for AI, they're taking you for a ride. It's the same thing.
And it's the EEAT, right? What is that? That's the expertise. What does that acronym stand for? Is that still relevant?
It's still relevant in a sense. I think it complicates it a little bit.
Okay.
Literally, what you have to think about is visibility. So it's where can people find me? We're taking your LinkedIn, right? We're looking at the website as an anchor, and we're looking at the GBP profile. That's going to be the start of your visibility. And remember, guys, Instagram now is SEOable. It ranks. So we want that content also, in a perfect world, to be written in that way. So there's that's an SEO piece as well, or can be. But we take that information, and what Google does is if you put it in AI or if you put it in Google, the same type of thing is happening. It's just discerning where those signals are coming from. All right. It's getting a little bit more smart, in my opinion, on how it's determining those signals. So there was a very beginning AI period of time where you could, and people did, spam backlinks, right? That's been going on for a long time. But if you spammed backlinks into your site now, AI was counting how many backlinks it was, which it was seeing as how many people, quote, think this is relevant, and then ranking that better. We are seeing that die off, and the AI platforms realizing what Google realized a long time ago, right? So they're just essentially catching up.
Can AI differentiate between good and bad? And that's not a great question, but like, can it see through the quality trial lawyer versus the mill? And again, and that's still also not a great question, because I imagine in large part it's going to be dependent on, well, what organic content is there?
It's the content, right? I think it's getting smarter now. I don't think that we're completely there, but my future hope is yes, that's going to be a thing. But I think that it has to do with how you word the query, right? And what you're asking it really to look at. So it is smart enough to look at reviews and to look at, the GBP Pro if you ask it to. So I think a lot of it is how is it being prompted? At this point, most people, again, there's some fluctuation, but most people are just treating ChatGPT or Perplexity or whatever as Google. Right?
Yeah,
so it's the same thing that's
I'm
happening.
doing.
Yeah.
And now can it, so like what we talked about earlier about how like I can evaluate another, for example, personal injury law firm probably fairly easily. Like I can see through the nonsense, right? Like if I see, for example, top 40 under 40, super this or all that, I know the awards that are nonsense that you just pay for. And then I know the stuff that actually like makes a difference. Can AI do that now?
I believe that it could if you asked it right.
Okay.
I think it has to do with how it's being prompted.
That makes sense. Because that's the issue. And that's not just for lawyers. I mean, right? That's for
everybody.
Everything.
Right.
Like
how do we get, even best plumber near me, best
sure.
remodeler, it's the same issue across the board, which is, again, why we can serve just local businesses, but because the fundamentals are the same. And so that's where really feeding in. So if we imagine that the issue is the front end and how that is being queried, that is human behavior that will change over time. Those people will get smarter in how they're dealing with it, with AI in general. Our job is to make sure that the anchor is there, that the right content is there, and how that it's pulling it so that when they do get smarter, the right things come up. One of the bigger things that we are seeing, so FAQs have been a big thing for websites for a long time, but I would say they are getting a massive resurgence. So anytime that we come in and are redoing websites or rebuilding them or whatever, every service page has a very robust FAQ section. AI loves it.
That makes sense, because then that also leads into the Google searches and all that stuff too. Okay, so the new lawyer who's done nothing with digital marketing, right? Or maybe not the new lawyer, but just the lawyer who's getting into that. First, take advantage of the free stuff. So your Instagram, your LinkedIn, your social. I imagine YouTube also is big too. I mean, videos.
It's a search engine owned by Google.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what's crazy, Kelly? It's like I actually learned not long ago that YouTube, I think, is the second largest platform for podcasting, which blew my mind, right?
Yeah.
But it makes sense. So start with the free stuff, then work on the GBP, which is also free, right?
And you can do it for free, right? Can an agency do it better? Probably, right?
Sure. But at least to get one going, right?
Like start doing it.
Yeah, I mean, at a minimum, create one. Like I have a buddy who I've introduced to you, and I'm like, dude, like you at a minimum, you've got to at least just create the thing so people can find you, right? Right.
Google can't rank what doesn't exist.
No, exactly. Because if you're not an option on the internet, then it's just not an option.
You don't exist.
You're ranked, right? And then the next thing is, well, let's focus on content. When you're looking at let's say a personal injury lawyer, what guidance are you giving them for what content they should be?
This is a big one. So this is that bridge, right, from the visibility of marketing into converting the right people, right? So I did a post the other day that, the people that we, bring on as customers define how the business feels. Like what type of businesses do we want? What type of people do we want to work with is going to come down to the words that you use that they saw that made them call you, right? You can write certain content and get really horrible, cheap clients, You can write content and get amazing clients. It comes down to the words that you use, which really is going to come down to messaging and the branding of that messaging, right? That says, who is it that I want to work with? So as a personal injury lawyer, the hard part when I work with clients about this is actually defining it. They don't really know, right? And this is just small businesses. It's not just you guys, right? Like this is just in general. It's like, well, I have a skill. I want to use my skill. I'm like, I get that. So does everyone else. So why you, right? Like, what is it that you bring to the table that makes it what you do special? If you look at and you Google any personal injury lawyer across the United States, they all look and feel about the same because they are very, very focused on, I do this thing for anyone.
Right.
That's not it. It's, I do this specific thing for this very specific human. That's how Google starts understanding who you are. The visibility is there, but the messaging around that starts prepping your sales department in a much better way.
I'm sure there's got to be some concern, at least from our standpoint. Like, and actually, I dealt with this the other day. Like, we're working with a video group, and part of that was what is the avatar, your ideal client, and all that. And it was somewhat limited. And I remember pushing back, and I was like, well, I want to help anybody, like anybody who's got a viable case. And because they had segmented it and said, well, we help military veterans because 3 of our 4 lawyers are military, and a couple of other things. And I remember being concerned about that, right? But then I also had to remind myself, well, like, if I try and be everything to everyone, then that's far less effective than being enough for a specific group, right?
Right. It kind of goes back to, there's a saying that it's for anyone, but it's not for everyone. Like, think about that, right? So it's not for anyone, but it's not, right? Like, think about how that actually pulls through and say, okay, now there isn't even a world, and we work with businesses where there are multiple online entities to make that easier and say, okay, we are personal injury lawyers for veterans. We are personal injury lawyers for X, for Y. And then that entire online existence is built around that. The only reason to do that, and we get this question a lot, if you guys see people doing that, literally the only thing is visibility. It is a faster way to rank for certain things because Google is not confused. I personally don't think it is the best long-term strategy. Those will eventually have to be absorbed, but it depends on the company. And this is where, really talking to somebody about what's best for your business, which is going to be different for everyone, makes sense. But that's why you would see something like that done.
That's interesting. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I have seen that.
Yeah. It also depends if you're going to sell it, right? Like, do we have an exit strategy, and what is that? Are you selling, if you go into this and you say, hey, I want to build this side of the business, but I'm going to let it go eventually, separate it, right? That's going to keep everybody's life easier. But there's a lot of reasons why that would be the case.
Have you ever heard of the phrase, like, find your unfair advantage? And I'm sure you, and which is something that occurred to me not long ago. And like, it actually forced us as a firm to sit down and say, all right, well, what is our unfair advantage? What is it that distinguishes us from other personal injury law firms? Because to your point, I mean, you Google personal injury and you see 100 different law firms that all have 5-star reviews and all say we get $1 million results, and all say we're trial lawyers and we care and we'll never give up and we'll get you justice. And you name 5 other things that you see on every
single one of them.
Site, right. And so that unfair advantage piece, I think, is huge. And I think a part of that, and correct me if I'm wrong, is also like, well, who are you? Right. Like, because I mean, at least in our profession, people are looking, at least I expect, they're not just, I mean, they're looking for someone they can trust, right? This is not a commodity. This is not, I'm buying a widget. This is buying a service. And ultimately, for this transaction, if we want to call it that, to be successful, both sides have to trust each other. Right.
There has to be a thing that you've shown up for me in some way. That is like what we kind of call that creative brand positioning, which is who am I, who's the business, and why us. Those are separate things. Who the business is and who you are different. And so we can say, okay, how can we attract that? Now, one of the things that this leads to, when you're trying to figure out, like, what is my unfair advantage or what is my lane or niche or however, whatever vocabulary you want to put around it, if you're just starting out, this is going to be a hard thing to do. You're probably going to take a vast variety of different kinds of cases. You're trying to figure things out. You're trying to figure out what you're good at, things like that. As you've gotten more into your career, what you're going to realize, whether you want to admit it or not, is there is a certain type of case that you nail for whatever reason, right? There is a certain set of things that align that you kill it on. That's your unfit, like that's what you build it around, because it's not that you can't help the others, but with almost without a shadow of a doubt that you can nail this thing. That's what you go after. Period.
That makes sense. And then you double down on it, right?
Right. And then if you're growing your firm, you find somebody whose lane is different than that. And then you guys start stacking those things, right?
That makes sense.
Like, you're not going to know it in the beginning. You're going to have a wish. I want to do this thing. I want to be the person known for this. It's not going to be many years until you actually figure out what that is, but that's where you start honing in on.
It's funny, at least in our field, right? Like, I'd like to think I'm a generalist, and I kind of like it in the personal injury space. Like, I like the creativity and the variety and all that. But there are lawyers who really do specialize. I mean, there are lawyers who do nothing but like plane crash cases. There are lawyers who do nothing but car wreck cases. There's med mal lawyers. There's all that. What's been funny, at least in what I've looked back the last few years, is I have this weird knack of getting these bouncer assault cases.
There you go.
It doesn't. I mean, it makes no sense to me. But I got one, and we got a really amazing result. And I guess maybe that led to others. And so suddenly, I'm an assault lawyer, right?
You're the bouncer guy.
Yeah, I'm the bouncer. And I mean, I like the cases. I think it's purposeful work. I think the whole, like a lot of our cases, it's the betrayal of trust, right? We have a business that is asking people to come to it to spend money, yet with the businesses that we have these cases against, they're not taking their patron safety seriously, and they're putting people out there who can cause some real harm. And we've had multiple cases now where, I mean, the harm that these bouncers have caused it's gruesome. I mean, we have a case going on right now that I think we're filing suit on it today or maybe tomorrow, and I haven't seen a worse video. Like, it is horrendous. Like, at one point, Kelly, the bouncer is stomping on the guy's head, right? Yeah. Like, it's horrendous. Anyway,
you can't do that. Yeah, like somebody's got to put a stop to stuff like that.
You can't do that. You really, really, really can't. Okay, all right. So we're taking advantage of the free stuff, the social profiles, we do GBP, we start working on our content. Is the next step then, if you're doing the minimum, at least trying to take the least expensive route, is it then to start engaging an agency? Granted, in a perfect world, you would want an agency from the very start, right? Because then you're not wasting time, and at least you
get... It's a time money thing. Right. And so, I want people to be able to help themselves to some capacity and get the ball rolling. Of course, an agency can do it faster, which means that you'll probably make money sooner, right? But that's not always the goal. And it's always interesting to me, like, where people are in the journey. The next piece is that anchor, which is the website, right? There are easy ways to do that at this point. Some are way worse than others, but at this point, if you're just getting started, get something up there. It's, who am I? What do I do? And why am I doing this? And how to contact me. And so get that out there. And that is going to be, obviously, if we're starting our online presence, then we're new in some capacity, right? So just get that up there. It will more than likely be completely overhauled, just with different technology and content and all of that kind of stuff from an agency who can do that probably better, but get it up and get it working for you.
Is the timing thing a myth? And what I mean by that is, for the longest time I've heard, well, listen, like, SEO, you're not going to see anything for 10 months. Is that a myth now? And you can start seeing results sooner? I recognize the answer in large part is it depends, right? It depends on what agency he's working with.
It does depend. And there's going to be different factors. One, is this brand new? Two, did you do something, or did an agency do something that made Google hate you? Which is a harder thing to clean up and generally takes a lot longer. And then are we kind of status quo and just, reorganizing and moving forward? That scenario is going to be the fastest. The second fastest is going to be the brand new. And then the third fastest is going to be, you've made Google really mad, or the agency before you did, and now we've got to clean stuff up, right? So either way, the idea is, in general, SEO is the slowest game that there is, but it is also the longest profitability that you will ever have. Right?
That's right. Like, in comparison to an ad, you spend the money on an ad, but that ad is gone.
It's a water
after
faucet. Turn
That's
it on,
right.
turn it off. And that's great.
Right.
Do that. That's fine. But imagine my whole thing against, I think PPC is, I'm not going to say that it's dying, but it's absolutely getting worse from a quality standpoint. And the reason why I love organic is because people who are searching organic are searching education. It's in my opinion, and lots of data to back it up, you can Google it, they are a more discerning person, right? But it also depends on how much time you have. If you need leads today, then ads are going to be what you got to do, right?
That's right.
But if you turn it off, it's going to stop, and it's going to cost you way more short-term and long-term to do ads than SEO ever thought about. So the next question we get is, well, if I do SEO and then AI comes in and Google doesn't rank stuff, what do we do? Well, I honestly, I truly don't believe that Google's going to say, hey, the game has changed, I'm out. I think they're going to change with it, right?
Yeah, they're making good money. They're not turning that off.
There's no way Google steps away. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're figuring it out, everybody is, and how this actually works. I mean, ChatGPT also just came out with ads. So really, these are just different search engines that are trying to learn what Google has known for decades. So at some point, it's going to come down to quality. If I Google something here, what do I get? If I ChatGPT something, what do I get? Are they the same? If they are not, usually you're going to start figuring that out and which one was better quality, and that's going to happen fast.
Yeah, absolutely. Kelly, I've got 2 more questions for you.
Let's do it.
What's the one thing that you want trial lawyers to take away from this when it comes to SEO and digital marketing? And I recognize how difficult of a question that is.
Yeah, I think the first part is, and you and I have talked about this before, and you brought it up on the call, is that are there situations that, a marketing package costs an absolute ton of money? Yes. Like we work with $1 billion company. I promise it's not cheap, right? I'm not gonna lie about it. However, the idea is it shouldn't in certain situations. Okay. So generally what happens is they start piling on too many things. So if you go to an agency, right, and they say, we're going to do SEO, we're going to do, SEO for AI because they've added that on. We're going to do GBP, we're going to do Meta, we're going to do PPC, and your bill is $15,000 a month plus ad spend. The question should be on your part, what is actually necessary? From my position as who you are as a personal injury lawyer, there's 4 different stages of business: pre-validation, validation, leverage, and scale. The marketing packages for each one of those are vastly different. So it's understanding which one of those are you in so that the marketing package can serve you best. We can always add more, but if we add it all today, we actually don't know what's working. Not really. And anybody who's ever paid for ads understands that the tracking is very difficult. So if all of a sudden we turn on 5 or 6 different traffic sources, paid and organic, you are probably unaware of where it's coming from. Right. Very few companies get that right. Yeah.
And you don't need everything.
You don't need everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You need to pick, I imagine you need to pick the things that have the, I guess, most bang for their buck at
Correct.
the present moment.
Correct. Right. And we stay in our lane, right? Web design development and SEO. That's our thing. I've, recommended a social organic person to you before, right?
Yeah.
Which is very tailored to who you are. Any sort of, there's going to be anybody that listens to this, as far as social goes, some people are great on camera, some people aren't, right? We know who we are. We do our thing. If you're great on camera, there's somebody that can do this thing. If you're not, we got to go in another route. But if we start shoving, round pegs into square holes, you're literally just bleeding money monthly.
Last question, Kelly. If you could go back to when you started your career, when you made that decision to get into the digital marketing world, SEO, knowing what you know now, what would you tell yourself?
Knowing what I know now? Oof, that's...
Easy question, right? No, I'm joking.
Yeah, no, that's hard. So many things. I think that, the journey is what turns us into who we are, but I would never have done ads. I would have always stayed with organic as our number one focus as a company. It is by far the single best way to help a company live for decades than anything that I've seen.
Kelly, this has been a lot of fun. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'm super grateful we connected. I'm excited to continue working for you. And I'm super excited that you guys are going to come out to Wadir to Verdict here in October.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
Well, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I love this. This is great.
Thanks for listening to Courtroom Stories and Tactics by RVA Trial Lawyers. hosted by Sharif Gray and Niall Abuzaki. Please subscribe and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or any major podcast platform. Together, we're building a tribe of trial lawyers to remind the world what human life is truly worth, one verdict at a time.